Good evening, and welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting Monday, July 10th, 2017. As we always do, Mr. Clerk, if you could lead us in the pledge, please.
Sure. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, so we've got, I think there's some wages going on the board for whether or not it can keep us on time tonight.
We talked about that before you got here.
Thanks. I get moles. Thanks, Alex. Just kidding, I wouldn't sell them all like that. All right, so our agenda is as follows. We will do our mail packet, read mail. Item 2 will be the Littleton Common Smart Sewer update. We got our friends from Weston and Sampson and Mr. Stoddard are here tonight to help us with that. Item 3 is public input and members' updates. As always, if you have any input, I just ask that you be recognized by the chair. Raise your hand to be recognized. And then just state your name and your address and be heard. Next up, at 7:15, item number 4 is a joint meeting with the Board of Health to fill a vacancy. Through May of 2018, Mr. Yap has resigned from his position, so according to Mass General Law, we have to do an appointment through to the next scheduled annual town election. At 7:30, item 5, the town boards and departments. We have several items on that. The PMBC is up for an appointment. I believe it's Mr. Calentro. Letter B is library trustees are coming in before us for some naming rights information. Item C is finance and budget, FY 2017 year-end transfers. Got a list of small funds that had to be transferred around, in most cases small. Item D is police accreditation update. And Chief can help us through some policy adoption. E is highway dump truck procurement. F, Church Meadows leases at 194 Great Road. G, conservation restriction, Village at Reed Meadow. At 8 p.m. we have a public hearing. It's for a transfer of an all-alcohol restaurant license of the 529 Cafe to El Forno. 8:15 we have another public hearing, which will be an entertainment license application for the Tavern in the Square at 810 Constitution Ave. 8:30, item 8, Town Administrator, Assistant Town Administrator. First item on that is Green Communities Competitive Grant Award. We get a little opportunity for some bragging there. And B is Procurement Facilities / Project Updates. And on that, we have Nagog Hill Road reconstruction, complete streets, Russell Street sidewalk, the high school field repairs update, and town buildings and space needs analysis. And then an update on alumni fields, the alumni field. Well, I guess it's fields. It's 2 fields there, so I'm good with that. And lastly, we have other business, which is our minute approval. I don't believe we have any need for executive session this evening. So if everything goes relatively close to on schedule, we should be finishing up somewhere around 9 o'clock. So start the clocks. All right, starting off with mail, Mr. Bergman, if you could lead us there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few items in the mail packet. One is a copy of a letter that the Board of Selectmen received. It was a letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals providing an update on the Kimball Farm Village on the Common project, which is a 40B comprehensive permit. The permit was originally issued in 2006. There have been a number of extensions that have been issued since 2011. The most recent extension expires on December 31 of this year, and the a requirement for the what is a 1-year extension was that there be an interim detailed status report, unquote, submitted by the applicant to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that's what this update is meant to address. The letter addressed to the ZBA invites a further discussion. In the past, the Board of Selectmen and the Zoning Board of Appeals have met with the the licensee on, on occasion. We had been meeting at least once a year, sometimes every 6 months. And you may want to have that discussion again with them to see where they are with the property and what. I think the record shows that as more time transpires and that the Zoning Board of Appeals is, while they have continued to grant extensions, each time they've done it, they've expressed their concern about granting further extensions. So you may want to have a discussion with the ZBA and/or with the applicant at some point. A couple of other items in here. There was I think a 100-page document, which I hope no one pressed print on, but they got PDF. I meant to, after I sent it out, I thought, caution, many pages ahead. But the Metropolitan Area Planning Council has been working on a climate change resiliency plan for the 13 towns of the Magic subregion, and the first of several reports has been issued in a draft state and is invited for comment, and there'll be some series of meetings and some further documentation that's issued, so I wanted to share this one. And then we have a letter of thanks for some work well done by the Highway Department that we have forwarded to Chris to let him know how well thought of his folks are. So thank you for that.
It's nice to hear that stuff, so the letter came to me and I asked Keith to include it, because it's nice to hear the kudos. So all too often we get the phone call saying, when are you going to pave Hartwell Ave, when are you going to pave Spec Pond, or those kinds of calls. So it was nice to hear that Mr. Conceição had some kind words to say. So thank you for that. Appreciate all the work you guys are doing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
As you guys are setting up, I just want to throw it out there, since it was part of the mail. It's not on the agenda specifically, but it was part of the mail. Trying to figure out who among us would be best, tying into our goals, to reach out to the ZBA and reach out to the applicant. So would that fall into housing? Would it fall under economic development? I think I reside on both ends of that, but so.
Master plan goals too.
Right. So have a little conversation around that. Do we want to make a decision right now, or?
I'm happy with either you reaching out to him as the chairman, or if you don't want to, I could wear the hat of the master plan implementation, or whatever. It's probably appropriate if you follow up.
Okay. And then if I feel it necessary, I'll reach out to Paul. Is that
Just update the rest of us, or whatever you want.
okay? You good with that? All right. Just since it was before us, I figured it would try to
I think that makes sense.
keep it moving, right?
Yep.
Be proactive instead of in December saying it's going on.
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, and we did fall into that situation last year where while it was on the radar screen that the renewal was up, that they actually didn't request a renewal, and then we got into a debate about whether they needed to request one or not. I think we want to be clear with the position that you do need further extensions, and you do need to request them, and that we'd like to be in conversation with them. So.
And in the context of other permits that they need, my understanding is that they have an extension of an order of conditions from Conscom, but Conscom extended that with a finger wag saying, we're not just going to extend this one again. So I don't recall off the top of my head what the extension duration was. It may have been 1, it may have been 3 years, but
Okay. I can circle
something
with
to
Conscom.
consider when you reach out there.
Yep. Thank
That
you.
order of conditions is getting pretty stale.
All right. Next on the agenda is a Littleton Common Sewer update. You want to take the lead? And,
Yeah, I'll kind of introduce. So, thank you for having us. We've, Weston Sampson's been on board with us for about 8 weeks now, 6 weeks, I think. And we have an exciting exciting information. We have a meeting with DEP and some pretty influential people with the state coming up on the 19th. So ahead of that, we kind of wanted to get in here and just give you folks the update of what we've been doing so far to date, and kind of a rough timeline on what to expect over the coming months. So with that, I'll let Kent kind of take over here.
Excellent. So we put together a little agenda for the few things we wanted to talk about. Obviously, we want to talk about where we started, which is coming up from your prior planning work, changes, new information, and kind of analysis of that planning work as we meld that into our current planning effort. And then we want to talk a little bit more about some of the details on some funding options that we've been looking at, specifics about the DEP meeting, and then some ideas on local project focus, some things that the town can start doing now, and then also finish with a little discussion of schedule and where we are on things. So really the start of reviewing where you were before came from this concept that it was a vision, as we talked about a few times. That vision was really, well defined as a vision in the reports previously, but didn't have a lot of details. And so one of our things we're trying to do as part of our charge to start with here is to test the assumptions that were in that report. I think the town administrator reminded me that the term healthy skepticism was something that's been used, which is the idea that we want to make sure we poke these concepts around enough that we can feel comfortable with what pieces we proceed with and that they are going to work, not just that we're running headlong because we love the original concept and it doesn't have feet. So our goal here is to give legs to some of those initial concepts and doing that by testing assumptions. So we've been doing a little bit of poking around the perimeter of that to begin with. Some of the specific areas that we've been focusing on include reviewing the project area limits, and we're continuing to work with Chris and contacting some of the other departments in town to talk about these things. In particular, this concept of which problems are included in the smart sewer area, which properties are included in the smart sewer area, and why those properties are included in the area. What is the actual basis for those limits? Why do we draw the line in a certain place? And then are there other properties or areas that should be considered as part of the project, either because they meet the same intent and the same conceptual basis as the planning area actually had, or for some other reason, like that they fold in really well. For instance, one thing we kicked around was the high school property has its own plan and has capacity to spare, but isn't technically part of your planning area. We start to look at cost effectiveness of planning operations, similarities in what will happen on those sites. That's a good example of a discontiguous site that actually probably makes some sense to be thinking about in the grand scheme of does it fold in fairly well in a number of different ways with the project area. So we're testing those assumptions a little bit, and we're going to continue to work with Chris's office and some of the other staff to try to pull that together a little bit further. In particular, we're also kind of going around the perimeter of the area and kind of making sure that there's a good reason why things are in and aren't in. The second thing that comes and kind of goes hand in hand with that is when we talk about a utility that handles wastewater. In particular, the thing that comes back up is the size of that is based on who you serve and what their water use is. How much water they then have to, that they use and then have to dispose of, that we have to then treat and do resource recovery on, and hopefully reuse and actually generate energy from and do other things. But it starts with development of the capacity of the treatment system, the Community Water and Energy Resource Center, the QUIRC, as you termed it in the first phase of the report. So we're working on developing and refining some treatment and discharge system requirements based on that flow information, including going back and re-examining that flows, again, that healthy skepticism. And we've already found some information that we want to make sure is in balance with those flows, so we're drawing a proper envelope around this, being both realistic with the flows, but also understanding what's going to come back out of that information when we deal with the regulatory agencies that are going to get to approve this project in the end. And then we're taking that information and we're trying to now step one step further, which is getting back into the analysis of once we treat this to the highest level we can, even with reuse as an option, and we think that's a positive thing, there's still going to be a need to find a groundwater discharge site in town. That's going to be one of the key pieces that's out there. So we're re-screening. The original report from 2012 had done some screening and found some sites that might be applicable. we're rescreening that. We're reevaluating the information that was collected at that time. And we're trying to make sure that we retest that because there's now 6+ years of additional data available, including some very readily available information from MassGIS, MassGIS system, and other sources of information that we think is helpful. And we also want to make sure that we can reproduce some of the things that were done in that screening to be comfortable with the results of that, so that we can find out, okay, which were the sites that make sense. Now we compare them back to the 2012 sites that were identified, and it allows us to take that next step of starting to step into, okay, what will we do with that information? Which sites do we now focus on to try to do it? So this was just a re-presentation of the project area map. As you can see, we're starting to identify particular parcels around the perimeter with questions as to what was in and out. This is an ongoing process, and again, like I said, we're dealing with Chris's office on this and talking to quite a few different folks in town. The area is fairly tight from the original planning concept. It was the 2 overlay districts, and this map still shows it as that, but there's a need to continue to look at, does it make sense to change those, particularly those perimeter properties in some degree. So just as a reminder of where we were with the scope, the phase 1 concept work that we're now underway with, I've kind of italicized the things that are all underway here. As we talked about the service area, the flows and loads, the groundwater discharge screening. As I said, the next step that we see coming out of that is once we get a little bit more information from that screening and from the flows and loads, we'll go back in and we'll recheck the technology preferences for both collection and for the quirk. That's not that far down the road. It's something we just haven't quite started yet. That will then be folded together with the screening that we did for the groundwater discharge, and we'll look at site prioritization and screening for the quirk based on how much land we need. And that's, again, something that we can revisit based on some of the information that was in the 2012 report. Refinement of the site selection for both will be done. Corey, click that. Then we'll kind of be finishing up the phase 1 stuff with development of the conceptual plan. We've already started the financial plan and affordability analysis by looking into funding and financing options. And then we'll also be looking at things like project cost and delivery as we wrap up with some financial information at the end. And the thing I want to get into next is developing the key project partners in the service area, because I think that's really the thing that we're on the cusp of being ready to do. Just quick reminder of what's in phase 2. We've also authorized money for phase 2. We're actually not starting any of this phase 2 services yet because most of it depends on the results of what we find in phase 1. So even though you have the money allocated and we've got the scope roughed in, we've got this held to the side for now, but just as a reminder that it's there. So the one thing we did want to talk a little bit more detail about was funding programs and funding sources for the project. And we've kicked around a bunch of these in general terms. We've come up with a few more specifics, and the main reason is we want to have a thorough discussion with the Massachusetts DEP folks and the other folks who we might be able to rely on to help us advance the project at the state level and to get some buy-in, to get some help to do this. So in order to do that, we want to really have an understanding of some things we could ask for that we think are within reach for that meeting. So the key thing that we want to factor into this is actual funding sources that we think are directly applicable to the project that you have, or could be applicable to the project, and it makes sense, they fold in well thematically with what you want to do. And the second thing is, make sure we appreciate the proper timing of the funds, because most of these funding cycles have an annual or recurring basis, and we want to hit them at the right time for your project in the right place. So the first one I want to talk a little bit about is one that has been coming up every year for the past few, and it's the Mass Water Infrastructure Assessment and Planning Grants. Run through Massachusetts DEP. DEP has direct control of these funds. These are great funds if you're going to do a small study of some type. In this case, good for planning for wastewater systems, good for asset management planning. Our target area for this would be a general piece of the planning work that we've already got underway. The good news is pretty much the entire scope of what we're doing is pretty much in line with the concept of this planning phase. The challenging part here is that the funds are limited. The funding in general under this program is limited to about $40,000 with a 25% match for a community like Littleton with your numbers. This is one that will come out fairly quickly. It's not currently on the street, but we tentatively anticipate that it will be advertised again very shortly, and that the applications will roll out being due sometime this fall, September, October. So. The second one that we've talked a little bit about in some of the past meetings is the Mass Clean Energy Center Commonwealth Organic Energy Grant Program. This is a tiered program that CEC has had available for a long time. The focus for this piece would be the anaerobic digestion piece, the taking the waste product and digesting it and generating gas, which we then burn to create electricity, and we burn to create heat, and we then use that electricity and that heat energy to recover both financially and environmentally from the process. This program tiers out in its historic form up to $50,000 for grants. There's a couple of different tiers through the piloting program, all the way up to as much as $500,000 under the 2016 program. There are some intricacies to this that we've been talking about with the town administrator's office about the fact that the underwriting comes from the Mass Renewable Energy Trust, and the Mass Renewable Energy Trust isn't currently paid into by Littleton Electric, Water, and Light, so you don't technically have traditional access to these programs, but we have a few ideas on how we might continue to have this into place with discussions with DEP, because I do think long-term, this program or a parallel to it is one of the best sources of current financial benefit, particularly when you see that bottom line number as much as $500,000. This program has not been successful in giving that money away yet in a significant way in other places in the Commonwealth. And so your project is potentially valuable to them, and we would still look to leverage this conversation forward to see if we can make that happen. The third one is, and the one I've actually been pretty excited about, we've had some good discussions about this, is the Mass DEP Water Management Act grants, formerly the Sustainable Water Management Act Initiative, the SWIMMY grant program. This program's been in place for a few years. It only manifested back as the WMA grant program in the last year or so, last couple. We think this fits really well with the concept of trying to generate a water reuse system, a purple pipe system, as we talked about, for a couple of key users and potentially for a very broad use potential in the service area. It's available for grants, for feasibilities, for evaluations, for potentially project implementation in the lot. There are not specific limits on the grant, nor is there anything that says we can't potentially tap it for both planning and implementation. So our general thought process is we could apply for this as soon as the fall of this year. Our one issue we have right now is, again, these are tentative schedules because a lot of these programs are, while they're annual, they're not re-upped yet. They haven't been re-upped, even though DEP's already told us they're going to be up. One of the ones that a lot of towns have had good success with, and I think, Keith, I think the town has used the MassWorks program in the past, have they not, for a few things?
We had a $1.8 million infrastructure grant for our roadway improvements for the Point intersection.
So, I mean, pretty common program to be used for that. You can see, good numbers in that. $1.8 million is a lot of grant money. The thing we think this applies probably the best to is if we can come up with a specific economic development goal or a specific partner and find a way to link this to the economic development piece, we can leverage this money the best. Again, there's no specific limit, but you can get upwards of a couple $1 million on this thing. We think that the timing of that probably fits better next year as we fall into the grant program. This is a program that's actually open now, and I think the applications close in early August right now. Keith, you know that program.
It's August 5th.
Yeah. So
we don't have a shovel-ready project.
Yeah, we really don't. So, but I'm thinking next year is probably a good timing to bring this one back onto the table, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Is shovel-ready an important component?
It is, because it has to get done, it has to be completed by the following June 30th.
Yeah, it's a 1-year program.
It's very quick, yeah.
And then the big one, the one that really is unlimited funding for the type of project that we're on, is the Mass DEP State Revolving Fund Program. That funds construction of large-scale water and wastewater projects and stormwater and other types of water management approaches throughout the Commonwealth. It's a federally underwritten program. It traditionally has been providing 2% interest loans, low interest loans. There is a 0% interest loan program for eligible projects that meet certain criteria. Funding availability, the best part is there are $50, $100 million projects that get funded with these things. So potentially, this is that, once we tap all the other sources, this is that spot where we'll get money for the rest of your implementation when we get there. And again, one of the big things we want to do is leverage DEP up for that. So now the question is, what are we going to do? We're going to meet with DEP next week on the 19th. Our hope is to not just get their general support for the project, and particularly get them to buy in now and try to stay on the train with us so we can get this thing to the point of not just through planning and get some grant money in it, but also get to the point of actual implementation of the project as we come into next year. We then hope to specifically try to talk with them about some of these funding sources. And again, the ones we talked about here specifically, 3 of these are directly within their control. 1 is not, but even though the Mass CEC one is not, there are some parallel DOER funds that are typically available with DEP and the EOEEA since they changed. Massachusetts changed what used to be the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, which oversees DEP, to now the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. That actually really links in very well with the concept that we're trying to present to them, and that the smart sewering concept folds those together. So we're hoping that that will help us kind of solidify some commitment from them, not just to give us some
And since we'll
funds.
be meeting with the regional folks from Mass DEP, that it's important to then get up the food chain, if you will, to, get closer to the secretary whose portfolio is both environment and energy. So
We think this is a natural fit project for them to be excited about. But we want them not just to be excited, we want them to then turn around and help. Really help. Right, and I think we can put that to good use. There's a lot of things we can still be doing to move the project forward. So, and then we also want to talk with them a little bit about some other ideas we and they may have about regulatory support, because regulatory support's always helpful. So the last kind of big focus thing we want to talk about is we want to start moving forward with a few other components. And one of the big ones that we talked about when we sat down recently with the staff was trying to get this engagement with the project partners to move forward. Because this really, in the end, this is one of the biggest components that is going to make this project unique and implementable and successful, is having folks who want to use the services that we're going to offer through the system. Bringing a benefit to specific property owners in a way that then returns that benefit back to the community as a whole is part of this overriding concept we've developed. And we want to talk about both large partners, because there are a couple of big ones like IBM and the Point and a few other places. But there's also a bunch of smaller individual business partners we want to reach out to at the same time, because we want to be able to offer benefits to a lot of different folks. So one of the things we'd really like to do is start to get a sense from these folks about what their real intentions might be of the service offerings we can potentially offer them. And again, the traditional service offering that you offer when you're building a sewer system, smart or otherwise, is you take people's wastewater away and they don't have to deal with it anymore. Well, in this case, that's one thing we're going to do. We're going to take it away, but even better, we're going to treat it to a very high level and reclaim it. And you do that in a very environmentally friendly way and a responsible way. However, we have some other things we can offer. We would like to, and we can, if we build the digesters, take away some source-separated organics for separate resource recovery, for digestion and energy generation. We would like to be able to provide effluent that's highly purified back to those users as reuse water that can be used for irrigation and the potential of some of the larger industries, maybe some other industrial process uses, and in a way really make this system extremely efficient in doing so. We would also like to find folks who would like to use the energy. If we can generate both electricity and heat in the form of energy, we'd like to find folks who can use those. And there's other things, like we talked about potentially reuse of solid organic material and other things like that. So we want to try to tap out what folks want to do with these. What are they interested in? And that could be on an individual basis. You may get 80% of folks may say, I just want the treatment. I want to flush my toilet and I want you to take it away and you can send me a bill. And that may be enough, but we're hoping we'll get a few of the larger partners that may be interested in all of these and maybe something else, including partnering with us maybe for some space and land, some use of their own parcels, to be able to really make this network. The challenge now is trying to get into, flip back for it, one more. The challenge is trying to get this into a position where we can actually get that information flowing. And in order to get that information flowing, we need to start this outreach process. And it's tricky because the timeline has to be such that when we start it, we don't have people lose interest. But in reality, even though we've been talking about this for a while, we're only now just starting this process again, and we hope to ramp this up through the end of this year, have a lot of activity into the beginning of next year, be really active, and wrap up all the technical issues and be ready to go. So we also don't want to wait too long to engage these folks. So this is really where we're currently focusing with staff to try to make sure that we're on the right track and on the right timeline to do these things. Because it's critical that once we start getting people excited about it, we don't want them to either find that that we're too late and that they're already moving too fast, or find that they don't have any interest in dealing with us because they think we're too slow. And so we need to balance that, and that's going to be one of the tricky parts. So I think when I envision the role of a select board in a project like this, this is part of what I see, is you folks talk to the people who potentially would be served by this, the big businesses and the individual business and property owners. And that's a good way for you folks to start enhancing that communication to help flowing that information back. And we're going to be working with Keith and Chris and other staff members to try to come up with some defined interaction methods to do that. But I think it's not too soon to start jumping into this piece with 2 feet, because we're ready to do that. We're ready to get folks on board to do it.
So you don't necessarily have a manual for us to sit down and
Not
say,
today, but what we expect to do is to develop some materials, some things that follow these guidelines, like what type of services they're interested in. And maybe a little bit of an elevator speech type of thing for you to have, so you know how that works. But right now, the questions are out there. We want to re-gauge how interested folks are. We don't really have a sense today. You know what happened at town meeting, but frankly, it's a little different crowd when you get into the property owners that are out there and the businesses. So you want to start to make sure we actually pay attention to the folks who are actually going to be potentially served by this. And then we'll have a lot of other opportunities to have open public meetings, and we'll hear from everyone else in the town as well. But we really need to start this targeting. And then the last thing I just want to do is just kind of review the schedule a little bit. So the schedule hasn't changed much. Obviously, we talked about, we've been ongoing for, as Chris said, upwards of a couple of months at this point. And I think we're either at the end of our 2nd month or into our 3rd month that we've actually been doing something. We expect to continue the phase 1 work through about November-ish. There may be 1 or 2 things that will trail on beyond that. We do expect that the funding applications will start to roll, as we said, as early as this fall. We do expect that the phase 2 work will come on as a result of the phase 1 results, which means we'll start those a little bit later. And we'll start those on a rolling basis as well. I do think that the key component of the schedule, again, is starting to really invigorate this focus of talking to folks and getting the message out. That's where we're at.
if I can just jump in, I'll definitely open up for everybody, but, so.
That's all, actually.
Yeah, next one's question and discussion. So, just along that same line, as far as the outreach is concerned, I believe Chase and Paul, you guys own this one as far as champions for our goals as a board. So that would be a logical choice for the outreach. But I would suggest that if you 5 guys can get together and talk about that strategy and put together the elevator speech and, which questions we want to ask and, who are the who's? Who do we go after? And, and the approach may be different for an IBM versus Joe the Barber. So I think that's going to be an important component before you guys just go out and start knocking on doors. Let's have a strategy and a very guided strategy with your consulting.
And we can come
expertise.
up with that. One of the reasons why we wanted to have this briefing here tonight, even as just a point in time update, is where we will soon be meeting with state officials to try to pitch for something. We wanted to make sure the board was aware of what the pitch is. And,
Yeah.
well, we're asking for grant funds or other support or enthusiasm, as Bob Zimmerman has been telling us all along, that's what we're trying to find partners. We're trying to find the state agencies that are interested in helping us and see that there's a grander vision that we're trying to accomplish. But I'd say we could certainly come back, say, within a month, or maybe at our first meeting in August might be a more reasonable deadline with the outreach plan. And as you indicated, we've got 2 gold champions in Chase and Paul from the board, and so we can be working directly with them and the rest of the sewer team to bring something back to you.
Right.
And I would be interested in that plan, including, hierarchies of what's the first and most important outreach. And, I think we're talking about outreach on the user end, but we also need to be talking about outreach on the siting end. Where is this physically going to be located? Because that dictates so many of the other components of the feasibility of this project. And so we need to initiate that type of outreach, probably sooner than initiating the outreach on the user end, or at least in concert with.
They will at some point merge likely,
Right.
because there'll be some overlap with those, but you're right, it's kind of 2 separate points.
And certainly that siting has to include the benefit to wherever we might site this. But I think that's my biggest emphasis right now is outreach on the siting piece.
All right. Let's kind of identify that as really our next step, is to get together with you all and establish what that outreach plan is. Any other questions, Chase? About the-
Two questions. One, this meeting on the 19th came about because DEP reached out to us, and I want to make sure that we're prepared to address the fact that they had to reach out to us rather than us reach out to them and initiate the discussion with them.
Well, we had
No.
discussions with them before.
Okay, well, the
They were
email
aware. They were-
communication seemed
The
like they were
most
caught off guard.
recent inquiry came from DEP, but we've been beating on DEP's and the state's door
Yeah, I misread
for
that email,
years.
that it-
Yeah.
the-
I think they were reaching out because they were excited that we were going forward
I
with
think
it.
that's,
Okay.
that's one case,
Okay.
because we had multiple communications.
Okay,
Because that
never
was in
mind.
the press, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. And we did have it in our scope all along too. We've
Sure.
been talking about it for a couple of months, that we were gonna interact with DEP directly.
I think what caused them to reach out was there was in the MMA Beacon.
Yeah.
Well,
Was it the
perhaps even earlier than that. I mean, Keith and Bob met with officials there
December.
last December.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right.
Most recently, and Bob and I had met with the Secretary Bielecki at DHCD several years ago on the subject of Mass Works or something else, so it's been on the radar screen
Yeah.
with state government for a while. But I have to say that it paid to advertise. I mean, the study that the Charles River Watershed Association issued, in which, in those reports, Littleton and this now funded project was mentioned, that got a lot of buzz. There were a lot of newspaper accounts of it and some scholarly journals or elsewhere. So that got DEP's attention, even more than us asking.
And then the other piece of the outreach that I would want to mention is, we sort of talked about reaching out to users, and the undertone was, we'll save the outreach for the community and residents maybe until later, and I think that's going to be a mistake. I mean, if we have to hold a dozen public meetings where no one shows up, that's fine. But the opportunity has to be there for
I agree with you.
residents to be engaged.
Having held those dozen meetings that people don't show up at, I'm all for doing it
And
again.
that's fine, and if that's the way it goes, then that's the way it goes.
Right, no, I agree. Yeah.
But that can't be, that's the third leg of the stool. So we can't put that until later.
Yeah, I mean, this, for all intents and purposes, this is one of those meetings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Knox?
Just jumping around, how do you research areas where the plant or the affluent's gonna go?
So map-based analysis using mostly GIS components, geographic information system. One of the amazing tools that we have that we didn't have 20 years ago is this really great database of everything that's overlayable on these types of maps. Years and years ago, we had aerial photos, but not much else. They had the old soil maps, which just gave you the superficial soils, but not a lot. There was an atlas of superficial geology that showed what was below that, but they're all kind of paper copies, and overlaying things wasn't that easy. Now you can overlay multiple layers of all different types of information on GIS fairly quickly. And so what we do first is a map-based analysis, and then we break that back down on a parcel basis. And in this case, we're just rescreening to see what data has changed, because the 2012 study had actually done some of that work as well. And so what we're looking for is parcels that, the first thing we do is we screen for the discharge, because the discharge has certain physical conditions that we need to do. We have hydrogeology that comes into play. We need to know that the soils are conducive to being able to put water in the ground,
Right.
and that they then go somewhere where they are effective, into an aquifer where we can keep them and store them. We have to at least get them into the ground at a certain rate. But we know things like how much water we want to get in the ground, how big of an area we need to get that into the ground. And then we know things about the ownership and the configuration and the slopes and the nearby receptors of all the lots. And we kind of factor all those types of information together. And we come back up with, okay, here's a bunch of parcels that would potentially work. And again, there's a list of a few that started out before. We're just trying to resuss that to try to just make sure that we didn't lose anything in the translation. And then once we have those two layer sets together, we're then going to sit down and do a more logistical screening to try to now find out, okay, well, which parcels do we have, for instance, access to? Which parcels does the municipality actually control? Or does a potential partner control that we can match up with our goals? As we said, our best bet is to find someone who both wants some services from the project, but could also lend us the use of some property. There's a lot of things that kind of factor into that.
I've got kind of a follow-up question on that, I'll come back to it.
I don't have any questions.
A couple of quick points. I'm very pleased that we're at where we're at with the engineering timeline, so it's comforting. It's basically where you told us a few months ago we hoped we would be. You didn't push this point too heavily early on, but I think your caution about testing some of our earlier assumptions is appropriate, but I would just encourage you not to shortchange the energy-saving smart components of this, go the extra mile on that, keep us updated if you do indeed think there's problems there. Relative to our meeting on the 19th, I know I mentioned it before, I hope our legislators have been...
They've been invited, but they're not able to.
Even if they can't come, as long as they know, probably not a bad idea, just forward even this document along to them so that they're in the roots, and so much of it is state programs. I'd echo again what Chase had said, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit, about the context of how
Right,
to
I
have some
think
public
that's
forums.
as much on us as it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, well, we can take this document and, go out and even start here and start, bringing it out to groups in addition to just having it on the agenda in our meetings, so we can think about that. And then fourth, I know on slide 4, which is similar to this slide, you had the map, the original map that chose the overlay districts as the zone, used a methodology that had nothing to do with, as you're discovering the need there. And there's so many people in the outskirts of that, in various areas have spoken up, and they jump out. I mean, why here but not here? Why that side of the road, not this side of the road? Knowing that the town complex here pipes right into the road, what's so special about that? Why not consider the corridor that goes down to where the pipe is already laid? So, I just hope we're really open-minded on that aspect of it, and don't overinterpret what the original map, it said. But other than that, terrific.
Thanks, Paul. Following up to Joe's question, as far as the site's concerned, one of the questions I had really, I trust that Chris is, he knows which sites are ours and which sites are not and that kind of thing, but when you get to a point where you're looking at a site and you realize this would be really a really good location, if it's not something that's in our care, custody, control, the sooner we know about those kinds of situations or properties, or then obviously we need to get engaged with that as soon as possible. So, on the earlier side, the better. Yeah, I mean, you know that, but I just feel a little comfortable getting it out there,
Right.
having Chris, at your beck and call.
So we'll know that pretty quickly anyways, because one of the things after the screening, one of the things we're gonna do is we're gonna actually try to get on the sites and look at them.
Right.
And we don't go on people's sites without talking to them, so there's a stopping point there where we identify a site, town doesn't control, we're gonna have to have an arrangement to contact that property, talk to them about what we wanna get on the site and look at. And that's a natural stopping point where we start to engage them anyways. So that just has to happen, we don't need to take choice.
Right. That might be a communication that comes from you guys at that point. All right. Ken, thanks very much. This is great. Appreciate the update. And, gives an
Could I-
opportunity for everybody to see. Yeah, sure.
Sorry, one more question. The funding sources, external funding sources that we discussed here are all, or almost all state-based or federally backed. So they're federal. Are there any, this has a big impact on carbon footprint and
Right.
things that are interesting to non-governmental funding sources. Have we looked at, or are we aware of any non-governmental funding sources that we could potentially talk to? I mean, either way, we're spending our town residents' money, whether it's from the town level or the state level, if we can say, we found money that's completely outside of that box.
I think we will have the opportunity for some of those partnerships as we advance right now. Again,
Mhm.
keep in mind, we've already gone through and screened a very large number of potential funding sources.
Sure.
Not all states, some federal, some other types of funding, including some private sources that have been out there in the past that may recur or we expect to recur. But our focus for this was to identify things that we think are within the direct purview of DEP to help us with.
Okay.
So we're shooting
In
for
the
this,
context of the
for the
DEP.
meeting for next week, we're shooting to kind of come up with a short list of things that would help us. We've already met with the staff and we talked, I mean, Mr. Zimmerman had some great ideas about some ideas that he'd like to pursue separately. So there's a lot of folks who already have some good energy on this and want to look for other sources. I also, I have a couple of folks back at my office who are basically funding specialists, and we've talked about some private funding sources that we've looked at in the past too. I do think long-term you'll have partners who will want to come forward. Right now, we're trying to take things one step at a time.
That's a perfectly fine answer. Just wanted to make sure that we're casting as wide of a
Our
net.
our first $100,000 came from a non-governmental entity, right, through Bob's work at Charles River Watershed Association was a Bar Foundation grant that helped move this original project forward.
These projects come from partnership. I mean, you need as many partners who are buying into the ultimate benefit of this is, it won't just help Littleton, but this is a type of a concept that if you can show that it works, has far-reaching impacts on the industry as well.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of
All I
folks
wanted to
could
do
go-
is make sure that this isn't the comprehensive list. But as far as a list for the 19th, that makes perfect sense. So,
He's gonna tap Al Gore.
Well, all you have to
Maybe
do
some
is,
royalties or-
all you have to do is declare that you want to be 100% renewable by 2030, and the money will start rolling in. So.
Stuff that way. All right.
Thank
There
you.
are other sources that we've discussed, just through emails and that kind of thing, like the
Talk to the
city-
I wouldn't take that.
yeah, and certainly part of this is me talking about
20,
these animals.
Yep, good questions.
Thank you.
Guys,
All right.
Ken and Corey, thank you very much. Chris,
Thank you.
as always, thank you. All right. So we do have a, public input. So is anybody interested in public input? You guys mind if I hold off on member updates right now, just to try to get the Board of Health here to do a joint meeting? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
So just
Yeah.
keep me honest, maybe we come back to that, guys. All right, so at 7:15, we were scheduled to have a joint meeting with the Board of Health to fill a vacancy through May of 2018, after the vacancy of Mr. Yap. So it's item 3 on our agenda, I'm sorry, it's item 4 on our agenda. Taking things out of order. You guys are welcome to sit where you are. If you want to come up front, you look comfortable.
everybody else in front, then.
You don't want to misplace them?
Okay, very clear from here.
Okay.
The question is, I was wondering why my agenda is not here yet.
I mentioned that make sure he comes here at 7 o'clock.
Your chairman? Is that what you're asking? Or a candidate?
Because the chairman is not here yet.
Do you, well, do you want to hold off and we can take another
I
item?
wanted to
Diane
hold
in
it.
our office had
wanted to hold it.
with him that he's
Well, maybe we can go
My
back to
apologies,
three.
yes, let's go back to 3A then.
board goals.
All right, so, drop it back in reverse here. Under member updates, let's go into the item 3A, the goals. Although we made our assignments and we've got this beautiful matrix to look at and everybody's championing all the lofty goals that we set, we really didn't take any kind of an action to cement these in place. So this is on the agenda really just to do that, just to take a vote so that we know who the stakeholders are. And
If you would like, I move things along by saying, you know, with the understanding Keith did a great job of encapsulating it. Not everything is gonna appear here exactly as
Correct.
it'll end up coming out, but I have no problem moving the motion here unless you want to discuss it further.
Discussion?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to adopt goals for FY 2018 as reviewed and assigned on June 26, 2017 as follows. Master plan implementation, housing, open space, green communities. 2, economic development. 3, infrastructure needs, Littleton Common Smart Sewer Strategic Plan, water system, stormwater, MS4. 4, transportation / commuter rail / crosstown connect. 5, roadway improvement plan, complete streets. 6, elder and human services. 7, public safety strategic plans. 8, organizational review. 9, long-range fiscal plan. And 10, town facilities. And with the assignments and the goal-setting matrix as attached as the detail.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Does anybody have any other updates they want to get to right now? Any?
Well, Cindy and I met this afternoon to get started on ours, but it'll be a while before we get back in some of that bylaw or organizational review or
Right.
dry stuff. But we have a little homework to do, but we'll get back in. It looks like Chase and I should get together on the...
Yeah, we've got some work to do too.
In the Master Plan Implementation Committee, I had sole responsibility. I know we had our vice chair here a moment ago, Anna, but we're having our third meeting tomorrow night, and there'll probably be a request to get on the agenda sometime soon because we're tomorrow night scheduled to do some prioritization of what we think our top goals are, whittling down the big list of master plan goals that the town has established and try to figure which ones we want to tackle first. So we're moving.
Awesome. Great. Cindy, you have a couple things that you wanted to talk about? or-
Sure, yeah, Chase and I actually had a great meeting this weekend with a couple of local residents regarding the opioid Narcan crisis, and basically just a good discussion about substance abuse issues in our community. And we have I think it was really insightful. It was nice meeting with them. We have a meeting scheduled. I don't know if we confirmed it.
Yeah, you sent an email today.
Yeah.
We haven't set the date,
Set
but
the
it'll be
date, yeah.
next
We're
week.
gonna meet with the first responders, the police department, the fire department, and meet with them as well to see what is already in place and kind of move from there, and then we're gonna follow up with the schools as well. So that was a really good meeting. I was pleased with the way that went.
I think one of the most interesting takeaways from that meeting is that there's a distinction between the recognized need as seen in what we expect to see anyway in terms of public health and safety statistics, Narcan calls and things like that, versus a real, unrealized and unvocalized need.
Right.
And those two pieces don't necessarily align. There may well be more need in our community than we see
Based on the data.
based on the data.
Right, right.
And that was particularly illuminating, speaking with these two women.
Right.
Sure.
It was really nice, too, that they took the time to meet with us and come forward, and we'll definitely be speaking with them again and getting them more involved. So that was excellent. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, was the Veterans Corner. Fundraising is doing really well. We have over $9,000 right now for that project. And we should have a design, hopefully in the next couple, 2 or 3 weeks, to get out to the public to look at for what we're proposing to do. So it's moving along.
That's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
A couple things. At the end of the month of June, at the Personnel Committee meeting, which I met with Anthony afterwards, but going back to Personnel Committee, we are meeting and coming up with a chart or a formula that compares all the towns that are pretty much similar to us, so we can use in the future as far as wages and where things sit. So the Personnel Committee is working on that, and that will be presented later on. But after that meeting, I met with Anthony, who was in contact with the person that's doing the space study, and said, just by chance, they're gonna go take a look at 255 Great Road. And he said, if you're around, you wanna go take a look. So I went there. It's a concept that's good to see that's out there. It's something that might not ever happen because it's privately owned and whatever. But I can't remember the gentleman's name who's doing the space study, the sharp guy.
Alan.
Yeah, Lee.
Alan Lee.
Yeah, it was fun to walk around with him and get his concept of things. And he said he's met with everyone in the town hall already as far as needs go. And he did say there's some departments that really want to hold on to what they have and things. And he says other departments have things stacked on top of each other up against the wall, have no room or whatever. But I was surprised. I think he might be coming back to us sooner than I thought, because that was at the end of June. And at that time, he was saying maybe 3 weeks, he would have some ideas and some plans that he can branch out on. And this is something you and I would champion as far as space study goes. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I mean, no one will know it at all until he brings it back. But it was just great to hear someone who's done it his whole life explain, oh yeah, this town has done that town's done that.
Sure.
So when these plans come back, it could be very helpful for us.
Right, it brings a different perspective. Sometimes when you're living with it and you're right on top of it, you don't get to see it with the same set of eyes. That's great. Thanks for the update, Joe. Chase?
A couple things. Anthony was able to get the PowerPoint presentation from that public officials finance forum. I don't know if that's been circulated or not, or if it came in just before I went on vacation, but if it hasn't, make sure that gets out. And one of the things that's in there that's very useful, and we might consider circulating it to residents in town, is a presentation on, not the most exciting thing, but a YouTube video on tax levies and setting tax levies in Massachusetts, put together by the Office of...
Schoolhouse Rock?
No, well, I mean, it's almost on that level, but it really helps clarify things and helps understand things. So that's something worth circulating. 2 other things. Met with Bob Zimmerman to understand sort of the history of the sewer, trying to get up to speed on that, which has been helpful. A call preparing for the meeting 19th next week. And then the last thing is that I've heard from a couple folks, I think it's sort of vestigial from my time on Conscom, some concerns with the development work going on at Durkee and the fact that they're still under a limited enforcement order out there. And so my sense is that people outside, unrelated and not necessarily directly adjacent to the project, are paying attention to that and are expressing concerns, and something that I'll continue to keep a finger on the pulse of.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be good, and maybe if it continues down that road, we can maybe ask the Marin or Mr. Mullen, somebody to give us an update on that. Just it's from the horse's mouth, and there's a lot of...
Yeah, planning board is meeting this Thursday. Right.
In a nutshell, what is the issue of concern?
I think it's a 20.
There's a pond.
Well, there's a pond
Yeah,
that's,
okay,
that's verging on a lake
Right.
at this point.
Okay.
And it's
That's
not
what I
well
thought I
controlled,
heard.
so.
Yeah.
It's good time.
There were also some other engineering issues in terms of infiltration basins and the effectiveness of those infiltration basins. And that's necessitating potentially some substantial engineering changes, which will ultimately come back to us because a lot of that infrastructure is going to be transferred to the town. So we need to understand what's being transferred and how that's going to impact Chris's work in the long run. make sure everybody's on board with what we're doing. And it's not to say I don't think planning's doing a good job, it's just, it's now, a lot of people are paying attention.
Yeah,
so.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. You're hearing it more and more, right?
Yep.
Just, I've got a couple things before I do that. You guys, Cindy and Chase being the two newest members, when we start this job, and Joe and Paul have certainly been around a little bit longer than all of us, but, sorry, just, it was kind of passive.
We'll get you a buzz out for a couple weeks.
But when you start this job, you drink it from a fire hose. And like you said, you try to go up to speed, and you guys have jumped right in, done a great job, and asking a lot of great questions, and reaching out to each of us, and I don't think anybody can really truly appreciate it until they actually are drinking from that same fire hose. But we all respect it, and I'll put that out to the townspeople that appreciate the work that all of us do, but certainly when you come on board as a new member, the learning curve is pretty steep, and you think you know a lot through the campaign trail, and you hear a lot, and a lot of it's hearsay, and you hear it from friends, and you should do this, you should do that. But there's certain things that guidelines and bylaws and policies and mass general law that we have to operate under. So I appreciate the way you've each operated over the last couple months, and it's been a nice transition. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Couple things, just next Thursday is the third Thursday for the month of July.
The 20th, is it really?
Right, so it came up fast, so
I know.
last week was the 4th, and here we are. So next Thursday is third Thursday, and it's going to be held at Fay Park again?
At Fay Park.
Okay.
It's a week from Thursday, not this next.
Not Thursday of this week.
This Thursday.
It's Thursday the 20th, sorry. So it's not actually the next Thursday.
But if you're watching, it
Yeah,
might be tomorrow, so.
depending upon when you're watching. I also just wanted to mention, my family and I went to the Kaliba Club at Fort Pond, and we had breakfast yesterday at the Kaliba Club, and they do this once a month. And it was first of all, it's a beautiful piece of property, and to take that in, been in town for 10 years, never been on the property, and so.
I live across the street,
Well, yeah, so it's walkable now, so. But it's an absolutely beautiful piece of property, and it was a nice take, and that's how they do their fundraising. Once a month, they, to pay their bills, they do a breakfast, and next Saturday at 5 p.m., they're doing an ice cream social. So it's Knights and Ladies of Kaliba, which is a Finnish population from the area that bought the property years and years ago, and it's a nice organization, and so they're doing an ice cream social on the next Saturday that we'll run into. That is the next Saturday. I don't know what that is though.
I don't know either.
So,
22nd? I don't know.
no, that's 2 weeks out. So, next Saturday, if you guys are looking for an ice cream at 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, stop by the Kaliba Club. It's at the end of Newtown Road. There's a gate on the left-hand side. That's where it is. It's approximately 620 Newtown Road. As you're heading towards Route 2, it's on the left. That's all I had. So next up, go ahead, sure.
Could we, I
Jump to
just
5E?
saw that
Chris is here.
Chris was still here, and he's not headed home at all, so he can come back by 5:30 tomorrow morning. Would you take 5E out of?
Of course we
order?
can.
Should be quick for our dump
Yes.
truck.
I don't think anybody have any problems with that?
No.
No.
I don't like having Chris here, but.
Thanks.
You got the floor, Chris.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to replace I don't have the paper from me, I think it's 2009 F450 with a new 2018 550. The theory that we've been kind of going under here is that with the amount of extra roads that we're going to be taking on soon from all the subdivisions, what we're trying to do is we're trying to not have to purchase a giant 10-wheeler for $200,000. We're hoping that we can use an F550 to supplement the sanding and plowing. So that way we can push that major purchase down quite a few years.
Okay.
So that's why we've tried to upsize to an F550 so we can put a sander in the back. But that's basically it. It's 2018 gas F550.
Makes sense? Any questions, discussion?
Nope.
No.
All right, entertain a motion.
Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Article 8 of the May 1st, 2017 annual town meeting to approve award of the contract in the amount of $56,417.15 to Colonial Municipal Group of Plymouth, Mass. for the purchase of a new one-ton dump truck and plow replacement for the highway department.
Second? It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Right now.
He's on his way.
He's on his way, okay, we're gonna keep going.
Thank you.
Mr. Colentro's in the back, I do see him. So we do it a 5A?
Sure.
Good evening. First, I'd like to congratulate you two new members. I haven't had a chance to congratulate you.
So Mr. Colentro is up for reappointment. Had the pleasure of serving with Joe when I was a member of the school committee, the representative on the PMBC. Joe works tirelessly and kind of keeps everybody on their toes. When there is no clerk of the works, there is a clerk of the works. When there is a clerk of the works, there's two clerks of the works. So Joe makes sure things are moving, and he makes sure that he's tight with the money, and he manages the money very well, takes care of getting the warrants in front of the PMBC so that the contractors are paid, so they stay happy. And he's asked to be reappointed. I know that Joe's got a passion for seeing the fire station through to completion. And I think that by us appointing him this evening, that will afford him that opportunity. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Colentro?
No arguments here. Happy to have him in service of the town.
Your work speaks for itself.
Do you have anything you'd like to say or any questions of us, Joe?
Well, just a couple of things I wanted to point out. First off, we developed a new reporting system that's going online, so all the citizens get online and they can see the projects are working, how much they cost, and as we spend the money, they can see what's left. So it's working. It's going to go online supposedly this week or next week. Secondly, we're developing right now a 5-year plan for expenditures for the town as it relates to projects. And we'll be presenting that after we've had a chance to go through, review it. It's a follow-up to, for those who were on the board at the time, the consultants we had hired years ago that outlines things. So it goes to all of the public buildings. And we're working on that right now. Meeting on next week from Wednesday, 2 weeks from Wednesday, we'll be following up as we go through each thing. And then we'll be presenting it, says, look, here's what we see as a 5-year plan, and here's what we see, the potential, how much it would cost. So that's the only other thing. I would like to ask for just a 1-year extension. The reason being, as you know, or some of you know, my wife has been ill, and she's not getting any better, so as it turned out at the present time, every time I come to a meeting, if I can't get a neighbor or something to come in, I have to hire people to come in, and that isn't the problem. The problem is I want to make sure someone's there at all times. She can't leave the house without me. So I'd just like a 1-year extension, and I will, I'll be there. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you, Joe.
People have anything?
And we have that
We have the flexibility.
flexibility to do that, yeah. Great.
We do indeed. Well, Joe, thanks for stepping up and seeing many projects through to fruition. And there's a couple that are in front of you right now, and looking forward to crossing the finish line with you.
Yeah, we're working it.
I know you are.
What's the date on Alumni Field? Have you guys?
What are we at, August 24th now?
Still the same date. And the softball field's going to get turf grass.
Sod.
Yep,
Sod. Yeah.
softball field.
Yeah, the softball field, there was a decision made last Wednesday? You guys voted on that last Wednesday?
Yeah,
If it was seeded, it would have taken 3 playing seasons, they wouldn't have been able to play on it, so the teams would have lost several seasons of play. So sod, the incremental cost would have, Anthony did a whole cost benefit analysis and that kind of thing, so the PMBC voted last week to place sod on it, so there won't be a softball season lost. So it's really, it's a very
That's great
proactive
news.
approach, yeah, it is good news.
and we're still on budget, believe it or not.
With,
Haven't run out of money yet.
Huh?
Have not run out of money yet.
No, but we're trying. We've had a lot of
Just cracking the whip.
expenditures. If you've been looking at the bills, the last
I'll take a motion.
three meetings, we've approved over $1 million for payment.
Yeah.
So projects are moving.
Yeah.
Anything else you
And
want?
obviously, the fire station's moving quite nicely as well.
Wanna make the motion?
Move Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Joe Calentro to a term on the Permanent Municipal Building Committee for a term expiring June 30th, 2018.
Second.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so we don't have to delay anymore, the gentleman is right here. Would you want us to approach?
Sure, come on up.
Come on, let's go.
So this is a joint meeting with the Board of Health. We've got a quorum, so we're in good shape. So as I stated earlier, because Mr. Yap had resigned his seat, we're required by Mass General Law to advertise, make an appointment for someone to fill out that seat for the remainder of the year until the next,
Let me open the
until the
meeting, okay?
next election. Go ahead and open your meeting, yes, sorry.
Open the meeting, okay? And the gentleman's right here, 20 minutes away.
Okay,
Okay, I'm all set.
you're all set? Good deal. All right, so, Mr. Locke, you'd tell us a little about yourself?
First, I got the egg on my face, a little late, I had my condenser unit on my furnace blow up this afternoon, and I wasn't home, and I had to take care of that, and I apologized, and then my wife and daughter got home, enough said.
Stuff
I
happens.
apologize for being late, and I apologize for being late over here, so. For me, I came into town a little bit a year ago. My wife and I moved in from Tewksbury. I'm a veteran. I served in Iraq for 2 tours with the Marine Corps. I am super excited about food service, super excited about health, super excited about safety in general in town. So for me, to be able to help the town in different ways is all I want to do. So I want to get involved. I want to be here. We're here to stay, obviously, because we're about to spend a lot of money on new units inside the house, so it's like, we gotta stay here forever. After being elected, actually, at the VFW, I was elected to be the Grand Marshal, so I actually got to march, and that was kind of fun. That's where I think we met.
Exactly.
Up there, so that was cool, and saw a lot of other people there. It was a huge honor, and to see that honor in this town is extremely passionate to me. So I feel really good about that. I feel how everybody is really tight-knit. It's a family here. So everybody takes care of each other, and that's what I want to do here, because we want to ingrain ourselves in kind of like lacing your shoes, lacing the boots. It's like, that's the way it stays up. I met Gino at the same time. It was a lot of fun. The guy's crazy. He has a good time. He's actually very mild-mannered.
I didn't say
He's
that.
awesome.
I'm not saying nothing, I'm very polite.
There's all different kinds of crazy.
It was really good. It was really nice to meet him, and researching about him a little bit about the town before, when we first moved in, to actually vote for him. It was kind of nice. It was nice to know that there's a committee that's out there to take care of the community and look for the community first and the people that live here before themselves. And that's definitely why I would love to fill the position, even though I'm a little late today.
If I could start, usually I'll have the question, but the only question I have for you is this would be filling the position until the next election in May, so the town election in May.
Understood.
Are you willing to run for that seat next May?
promise.
Yes.
All right,
Yes,
this furnace.
Absolutely. I'm willing to.
Okay, that's your
yeah,
intention?
That's my intention. Yeah, I want to stay on the committee. I want to stay here.
All right, great. That's the only question I have. Start?
I was impressed when I met Mr. Locke at the Memorial Day Parade, and I was happy to see that his was the face that walked through the door, so
Thank you.
thank you for stepping forward again for the town and for your country.
It's my honor.
I don't have any particular questions, but it's, looking at you, I do recognize you from the Memorial Day Parade. Thank you for volunteering for this position and stepping forward. I appreciate it.
Just thank you very much for stepping to the plate. It's greatly appreciated by this town, and thank you for serving our country. That's deeply appreciated.
It's my honor.
So it looks like based on your background, you've got some experience that's relevant to the Board of Health. What, understanding that you're sort of jumping into a newly open seat, what would your priorities be? What's your objective? What are you looking to do from the Board of Health?
Well, biggest things are I'm going to learn. You know, I'm going to absorb what's going on. For the Board of Health, let's say if it comes down to restaurants, it comes down to homes, it comes down to anything else, and you know, and the biggest thing is take care of if somebody's trying to develop in this area, everybody around them is what matters. So we're a small community, but we're a big community. So it's really take care of the communities and make sure we stay as family. And a priority to me would be, the biggest one is just making sure we all stay connected, we all stay happy with each other, and once you start getting, which, you know, I'm just going to take it out there, once we get big, like our whole nation right now, and you get a little crazy, a little chaotic, you start to lose sight of where you're going and what the point is. So if we keep within our community and we stay to the point, we stay to what we need to be and keep each other safe. Okay, the biggest thing is runoff, the biggest thing is everything else. You know, it's like I live over on by Spec Pond. So we have, you know, the mills, the trains that go by, everything like that. And, you know, and I fish in that Spec Pond. I have my license, just my license. But I fish in there. So I would love to be able to take the fish home, you know, so it's any kind of runoff, any kind of stuff that's going to hurt the neighbors, hurt anybody around them. My priority is to take care of our community and then start to spread out from that and set the example.
Thank you. All right, similar comment to Chase. I mean, most of what many people think Board of Health is just food, you know, and food safety. These folks, each of them has been new to the Board of Health, and the same comment I made for two new members of the Board of Selectmen. When you get on board, it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's a lot of stuff that you have to come up to speed on. There's a lot of master law that you have to follow, so much of what you'll face will have to do with runoff in Title V, and so you've got some experience.
We got the book for him already.
And my biggest thing is I'm very humble. I have no fear in asking the question to get to the next level. So if I don't know it, I'm going to rely and lean on the committee to help.
Yeah, there's plenty of resources, so just, yeah. Don't, I guess that'd be my only, I'd offer that guidance to you. Just be humble and ask for the help. I really don't have any further questions. I will say, yeah, I will. Thank you very much for your service to our country. Turn it over to the Board of Health.
You want to give your opinion?
Yeah, I like what I heard. Yeah, I agree with you. Yep.
We got a good team, so we're not going to disappoint you.
Sounds good. Are we prepared to take a vote?
I think so.
All right. Take a motion.
How do you want to word this motion?
Yeah, just move the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the Board of Health.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
just
David Locke.
With the same way, no, I just didn't know whether we had to have them vote to.
No, it's,
No, it's joint.
you vote together, it's not two separate votes, it's, so
right.
that in this case you'd have,
We have no
you've
objection.
got
We need
three,
five. We need
three
five.
here, yeah.
Move the Board of Selectmen, the remaining members of the Board of Health vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, subsection 11, to appoint David Locke to fill a vacancy on the Board of Health through May 2018 annual town election.
Second that, Gino?
Pardon me?
Do you second that?
I second it right away.
All right, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
You gotta get sworn in and all that stuff.
Yeah, so you do have to see the town clerk before you
Yes.
are an active member. You have to go to the town clerk, get
Today?
sworn in.
No.
Just-
I need a reiteration because I owe you a half hour.
Yeah, just, yeah,
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You guys adjourn?
Thanks so much, appreciate it. Welcome aboard.
Thanks again. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. I bought it, seeing you.
That's what's most important right now.
We're looking at 21,000 right now. The whole thing. It blew the AC unit, it blew everything.
You got an extra window unit if you want to borrow it.
We're going to go out and buy one for my daughter. She's 2.5, she has to have some AC. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right, so we are at 5B, if I'm following along correctly, library trustees. So the library trustees have reached out to us and asked for some time on our agenda to request permission. Well, come on up. Or if you're comfortable there, it's fine.
Comfortable here.
Yeah.
So Jenna Brownson with Dimitri Taylor, we're here because it's our understanding the Board of Selectmen have control of designating whether or not you can have naming rights on public property. So our hope is that we can send our fundraising committee out to talk to businesses and to potential donors to the new library with respect to naming a room or naming a shelf or naming other bits and pieces of the library, and that in order to do so, we need you to give us permission and the fundraising commission, a committee rather, permission to go ahead and do that. So that's why we're here.
All right, thank you. Do you have a comment?
Yeah.
I heard that big, deep breath.
Yeah, there's the general policy that the Board of Selectmen has is that for fundraising efforts that the Board of Selectmen's approval is required to seek funds for monetary and non-monetary gifts for public purposes. So you're in the right place. When we looked at our policy, though, that we don't, and especially when we compare it to some of the community policies that other communities have, our particular solicitation and acceptance of monetary gifts for public purposes policy doesn't dive down into the weeds as much to address the issues of naming rights. And so it seemed like we needed to either have a dialogue or something about just to perhaps jointly establish some parameters, like are there dollar limit thresholds? Are there agreements that, is it a quid pro quo for which there's an agreement that, and what happens then if it's not built, and so there's the naming isn't culminated, so what happens to the fund? So one thought that staff had anyway in reviewing this and preparing for tonight is that it might be well for us to actually jointly craft a policy where we're addressing the concerns and issues that you have and providing parameters so that when the board does act on it under their existing policy, that we at least have some better parameters, because right now we don't. There are all sorts of examples from communities in Massachusetts and beyond which have specific procedures for naming rights. If it's a building, it's usually, gets bumped up to even town meeting in some communities. If it's a building, or if it's a room in a building, then there are
Financial qualifiers.
yeah, that you might have thresholds of, what does a room cost? Is it $10,000? Is it $100,000? And is it, if it's a really big room, then maybe it's $500,000, or just some kind of parameters like that. But also to be clear what the
what the terms of the gift are. That if it's, for the most part, what we're used to is unconditional gifts, that our policy is sort of set up, that you give us the money, we put it in a fund, and it's ours, and we don't give it back.
Right.
If there's this other layer of naming rights, and I think we just want to have a dialogue where we understand what the fundraising goals are, and then can craft a specific, the form of a board vote that reflects what the strategy is. So we thought maybe it would be appropriate to start the conversation now, and that to, and to maybe jointly, whether at the staff level or whatever, come back with a proposed action for the Board of Selectmen to take.
Sure.
With what are the financial policies? And I've not had town council look at, to give me, what does the sample agreement look like for if the donation comes in for naming rights, but we can certainly do that.
So would you be looking then for the trustees and the fundraising committee to come up with some sort of a menu that would designate this room where...
So Jenna, you're right down the right path, but we're not at that point yet, because the policy doesn't state that. Now, we could look at what Denver, Colorado has done, what Houston, Texas has done, what Wellesley has done, what Brookline has done. I think Wellesley's policy states that if there's gonna be naming rights involved, then the donation has to pay for more than 50% of the project.
Oh, I see, yes.
So
Yes.
we don't have any of those qualifiers in place. So
Right.
I would suggest, and I know Paul had some comments as well, I would suggest that you do just that. You maybe put together, if you want to do it in a menu form, or, what you're proposing. So maybe we can help to craft the bylaw
Right.
around what you're proposing. But Paul, you had...
Yeah, I was just gonna say, it's not clear to me that we have any legal authority over you on this, but I'll bet Department of Revenue probably has rules about, this sort of thing. If they, whatever we do, we don't want to run afoul of good accounting practices or whatever the state's got out there. So I would think that maybe we probably should get council's opinion, at least on the parameters, but I don't want to slow you guys down either. But I guess I would echo what Chuck says. Go ahead and craft whatever your kind of proposal is. Maybe at the end of the day...
Yeah, we're happy to work, staff's happy to work with you, too.
Maybe at the end of the day, what we end up doing is have some sort of memorandum of understanding rather than a bylaw. I mean, I'm not, every solution doesn't have to be a bylaw, actually, in my mind, but...
Right.
Okay. I just want to make sure we do it legal, and I actually applaud your creativity and going down this road. So,
I think it'd also be appropriate because, let's face it, this week is go time, right? The 13th.
Well, yes, we were told that right around the 15th of July, we'll be hearing from the state as to where we fall in the list of towns
Right.
with respect to the grant.
Yeah, the website has
So
the
we should
13th.
be able to have some sort of a gauge whether this is going to be sooner or later. And it's sort of a double-edged sword. The sooner it is, the shorter amount of time we have to fundraise. The longer it is, the more increasing costs with respect to construction down the road. So it actually might end up being a wash when it comes to how much money you raise up front for a sooner build than waiting. So we wanted to be able to, we the trustees with the fundraising committee, be able to send folks out to talk to especially the potential larger donors. And frequently potential larger donors would like to know, well, could I have the children's area named after my grandmother or whatever. So all that being said, we were under the understanding that coming in front of you was the first appropriate step. And it sounds like at this point, we should perhaps take guidance from other towns and see what they've done in the past with respect to that, draw something up and come back, or as Keith has suggested, through Sam Alvarez coming.
Yeah, staff can work on it. I know that Bonnie and the finance department has looked at it. There's some issues, things to avoid, for borrowing. We want to make sure all the money that's collected goes towards the project
Correct.
as opposed to,
And I think that's also a parameter here as well. We certainly, the library trustees, recognize that there are lots of fiscal demands on the town, and as much as we are advocating the build of a new library with the substantial grant, which would come from the state, the townspeople might decide that this is not the time that they want to do that. And certainly if someone comes forward and gives you $100,000 with respect to a library build, and it doesn't get built, they might say, I'd like the money back.
Right.
Or they might say, just stick it someplace until the next time this comes up.
Could be a pledge. Many capital projects, it's a pledge.
That as well, yeah. So, okay, so at this point, we will work with the fundraising committee to come up with some initial ways of addressing the naming rights.
Yeah. And
And stay in touch with.
Yeah, the staff's
level.
happy to work with you, and we're
Okay.
glad to meet with the fundraising committee and just to work out all those details and then bring the package back to the board.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if
Yeah.
you're able to do even like a presentation of,
Sure.
kind of, like you said, the menu.
The menu, yes.
And for this size.
Good advertising too, huh?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to get an opportunity to promote.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I'm of the same mind as Paul. I don't think everything needs a bylaw attached to it. If there
Right.
can be, ways of doing things through, as you said, memorandums of understanding.
Interdepartmentally.
Yep.
And we would be willing to accept naming rights from individuals, foundations, private companies, like.
Well, those are the
That's-
things,
yeah,
those are the
yeah.
things that
Actually,
we
yeah.
would address. Yeah, I mean, in some communities, the policies they have on building naming rights anyway, or, it's either for an honorific, for, significant service to the community, or it could be for a donor, for a donation, but the
I like
threshold is
Denver,
very
it's
high.
making a donation is that in its own right is the
It's
gift.
a gift.
Right, you're making a gift, you should feel good about that.
I don't foresee it being named Gillette Library, so.
You know what, for a price,
I prefer these folks take a whack at it, and let them come back.
absolutely,
and
I
tell
just
us.
wanted to make sure there wasn't any explicit understanding up here.
Yeah.
I just want
Go ahead, go, Joe, go.
hats off to you in doing this, because I know, looking back about 7 years ago, with the 300th anniversary, when we first started planning for that, going through the same thing that you were just talking about, what can we name this and name that to bring money in?
Sure.
I always said, I don't want to be any part of the fundraising thing, I ended up being one of the 3 people that do it. And I know all the work that goes out there and the time you have to spend doing it, so.
Right.
Hey, I still supported the advertising on the police guys, remember that, Matt?
Certainly do.
Thanks. Thanks for reminding us.
We have a public hearing at 8 o'clock, but are you good with
Yes,
the
so we'll
guidance
just,
we're
we'll do
giving you?
some homework, and if we can get something like the presentation together,
That'd be great.
we're happy to request some more time in front of you to share
Right.
what we
We're
come up
meeting
with.
every 2 weeks,
Yes, I've heard that.
okay.
Yeah, perfect. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, thanks so much.
Actually, gentlemen, before you go, Keith,
Yes.
the only caution I want to put out there is, we don't want, I don't know who your prospective
We're calling you
targets are.
first, Chuck.
Yeah, good luck. Get in line. Not for fundraising, just in general.
Right, okay.
We don't necessarily, we want to kind of manage how we go after like the Sam Parks, the IBMs, so they've requested from us, as I'm sure you're aware, that we have kind of a single point of contact. Is that the best way to do it?
Yeah, and part of, and really, when we go back to why do the selectmen have a policy that everyone has to come here and get our permission to go out and do the fundraising, it was really because of some backlash that we had several years ago when
This is requested it.
when departments didn't, when departments simply went out on their own, boards and departments went out on their own, all to the same businesses, and we were getting some pushback from the
Sure.
businesses and said that, well, let's at least funnel it through the board so we're all aware of it and then can approach them and then know just how many people are knocking on
Right.
the same
Well,
doors.
and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because certainly there's some brainstorming as to where are those potential deep pocket donors.
Right.
And we certainly don't want to
Step on toes.
right, we don't want to make anyone feel as though they're just being asked, to be financially supportive of the library. So we will, with some amount of discretion, if it's possible, come up with a list of people that we think would be good and check in with you that those aren't people
I think
who
that's great.
are.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay,
Yeah, that would be a
terrific.
great
That's
way
good
to
to
do
know.
it. All right.
Very good. All right, thank you so much.
All right, see you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have a public hearing scheduled for 8 o'clock. I apologize to the petitioner. And so we've got the Gallery Cafe, El Forno, Mr. Mohammed.
You want me to read this?
Would you? Thank you.
Legal notice, Board of Selectmen public hearing. Application for transfer of all alcohol restaurant license from Gallery Cafe, 259 King Street, to RSS Il Forno Bar Incorporated, doing business as Il Forno at 521 King Street. Littleton Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on May 10th, 2017, 8 p.m. in Littleton Town Hall, offices, room 103, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. 01460, to act on the application of the Mass General Law 138, Section 12, for the transfer of all alcohol restaurant license for premises at 529 King Street, Littleton, from Gallery Cafe at 529 King Street, Incorporated, Virginia Woods manager, to RS Il Forno Bar Incorporated, doing business as Il Forno, Mike Mohammed, proposed license manager. A copy of the application is available in the Board of Selectmen's Town Administrator's Office at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Selectmen's Town Administrator's Office by noon on Friday, July 7th, or in person at the hearing. Littleton Board of Health, check to Coast Chairman. Date of publication is June 16th to 17th.
Nice, thank you. I just got promoted to the Board of Health Chairman.
Dang it.
Maybe it's not good, yeah. Davis wasn't here, so I can just,
Yeah, right.
all right, thank you very much. Appreciate you guys coming in.
having us.
No problem. Want to say your piece? If he's paying you, may as well get some words out.
Thank you. All right, so it's my pleasure to present this application. I don't know if I want to go into great detail, but it's a transfer of an existing license to a new entity. Just to avoid some confusion, when we initiated the lease, we had an understanding how the license was held, and as we got through the lease process, we found out that the license was actually held by a separate entity under Virginia Woods Dominion and Control. So what we did is we have a corporation that's going to hold the liquor license and a corporation that is going to be the tenant. Eventually, the goal is he's going to purchase the real estate, so the tenant on the lease will be the owner of the real estate, and that way we have some separation between the owner of the real estate and the owner of the liquor license.
Got it. Cleans it up a little bit.
Yes. I believe there was a discussion today with Diana from the office about the hours of operation. Again, I think we've covered pretty much everything in the application, but if there's any questions or concerns that the board wants to discuss, be more than willing to try to answer them or come up with an answer.
And you approved the common victualler license at your last meeting, but the liquor license required more additional, it required a minimum of 10 days of newspaper notice, which we couldn't satisfy at our last meeting, so that part of it comes tonight.
Okay, great.
And this is a transfer of an existing license. There was no requirement to notify the butters. It's only when it's a new location that there's that requirement under the statute.
If the license is transferring to.
Right, we had a transfer of an ownership for the Point package store license a couple of weeks ago, and while the original move to the Point required a public notice to the abutters, the transfer of ownership did not.
Got it. All right. I know that we do in our packets, we've heard from the police department through Deputy Chief, no issues, background checks, all great. Most of us know Forno and Mr. Mohammed from his other
Thank you, sir.
establishments.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it. Any questions?
Oh, we had the opportunity to meet Mr. Mohammed at the June meeting on the victual, how's that pronounced?
Victualler.
Yes,
Gesundheit.
And can't wait for being able to get to Il Forno without having to drive to Fitchburg.
Thank you, sir. Great response, great hospitality. You guys are wonderful.
Well, I kind of like the bring your own booze part of the
It's up to
You don't have a bylaw, though.
We don't.
Yeah, there's no bylaw.
Their own fault.
Good MOU. Cindy, any comments, questions?
Just excited that you're coming to town. There's a lot of buzz in town about it, so.
Thank you very much. I'm honored as well.
Chase?
Nothing, thank you. No, just to echo what said, there's a lot of people talking about you coming here. I went to your establishment in Fitchburg, I don't know how long ago.
Right.
26 years.
Well, I didn't go there that long ago, but it's how long you've been there. Welcome.
Which person would you go for?
He's only 40, by the way.
Probably would.
I don't have any comments either. You know, obviously, we wish you well.
Sure.
Everything's all set with butters and all that kind of stuff as well.
Everything is fine.
Good.
We do have one member of the public here. I don't know if we should ask if there's any public
Any
questions.
questions?
No, I'm excited.
Thank you.
Good deal.
Want a motion to close the hearing then?
I will accept that motion.
So moved.
Second.
From the second, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So the hearing is closed. Any discussion amongst the board? I'll entertain a motion.
No, sorry.
Will the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the application under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12, for the transfer of all alcohol restaurant license to the premises of 529 King Street, Littleton, Mass., from the Gallery Cafe at 529 King Street, Virginia Wood Manager to R.S. Ilforno, doing business as Ilforno, Mike Mohammed, proposed license manager.
Second. It's moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
And I'm going to pass around for your
Look forward to work
signatures,
with you.
2 copies,
Well,
sign on the
hopefully
left.
August 1.
Soft
Open.
opening August 1.
August 1.
I get the question every day.
Takeout, you're gonna take, takeout won't be ready, will takeout be ready
Yes,
that day?
we're gonna
Oh,
try
all right.
to do soft opening, like maybe within a week and a half or so. Just selling food only,
Okay.
doing some catering, just getting our feet wet and getting
The staff
staff
familiar with the
training
location,
and
sure.
work out the bugs and stuff. Even been in the business for a long time, but still, it's a new location, new ambiance, new atmosphere, new people. So we need to get those people trained and get on the right track before the license comes along. So that's the plan.
We're signing as we speak.
We're looking to be able to send the materials off to the ABCC in Boston tomorrow.
Great, thank you very
We're
much.
signing it right now.
Thank you. We appreciate it very, very much. You guys are wonderful, and we're just telling Jeff, great people. I mean, I've been in the business for so many years. I met so many folks. There were our humps up and down, but this is the easiest transition I've ever been.
Oh, good. Town hall staff has been
Wonderful.
helpful. Good.
Unbelievable.
He's called me and said he can't believe how,
I called them, I
You know.
came in the first time, I
Yep.
said, Jack, I can't believe the hospitality. I
That's
can't
great.
believe the reception.
You get that feedback to
People
the
are
staff.
wonderful.
That's great to
no,
hear.
please do, because he
Sure.
he actually called me the first day, he came back, he goes, I can't believe the reception I got. So-
Virginia never said
Certainly
that.
not aware.
Virginia never said that.
We done?
Is this thing on?
She's been very nice.
She has.
And,
I know.
she's very supportive. Have a wonderful evening again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a great summer.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
See you later, Chief.
All right. We've got some fives still to go through, right?
We're getting out of here on schedule there, Jack.
Doing all right?
Let's see, you could do.
That's a good 9:30, you know?
Yeah. well,
I'm walking out of here.
All right, we have, our next public hearing is an entertainment license. We got another minute before we can do that one.
Oh, it's had to
Get some of these transfers, let's get these out of the way there.
Raise my
Do
hands.
the year-end transfers?
Yeah.
Why not? That's
Joe needs to say hi to his granddaughter. Go ahead.
Hi, Jojo.
Chris, you can zoom in on Gago if you want to, give JoJo a nice close-up of her grandfather. 5C, okay with everybody, to year-end transfers? There you go, Gago. Nope. You gotta look up.
Hi.
There it comes, there you go, look up. Must see TV right here. All right, so for year-end transfers, we've got some requests according to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 33B, that allowed us to move some funds as attached.
Yes. So these are this is the final batch of year-end transfers that I'll be requesting for you to approve. The first one is for the police department, and it's in the amount of $40,000. It's within the same department, and he's looking to transfer money from his expenses into his wage, I'm sorry, from wages into expenses, the other way around. There was a lot of turnover this past fiscal year, so and it took a while to replace the officers. So there's a surplus in the account that he would like to use to purchase some radios that need to be replaced at they're at their end of life. Basically, I'll let the chief speak to that after, but I'll run through the others really quick, if you don't mind. Fire and EMS, there's a small transfer, again, from from expenses to wages in the amount of $2,132. The chief had mentioned this previously. It's just to clear the year end with the actual call volume, and he reserved for it, so we knew it was coming. The next one is for town meeting expenses. We budget $5,000. We went over by $2,120 this year. Due to the high attendance, we had to get additional chairs. We had to increase the audio-visual capabilities at town meeting. So that's what that ended up with. So we'll probably have to adjust the budget going forward if we want to keep that capability there. We're looking to take that out of employee and retiree benefits or unemployment insurance. That'll kind of close my account there.
Okay.
The last one is for $25,000 going into the selectmen or town administrator expenses. This would be for matching funds for ADA self-assessment transition grant. So if we don't get the grant, we wouldn't be spending this money. It's the matching funds component. We'd be looking to transfer this out of the PMBC expenses that are being closed out. Darrell Baker sent me a list of closures. So it's kind of an appropriate use. It's building money that would be used for
ADA compliance.
Yes.
That was the local match for the grant application that went in.
Right.
From the
new commission.
The new disability commission.
Great. Quick acting, I love it. Good stuff done. All right, chief, radios that you needed done right away?
Yeah, obviously, there's other state, the radios, this is kind of one of the oddities that, again, like Bonnie said, we had a fair amount of turnover, and it left about 2% of our salary line item available, because in trying to replace people, the job sat vacant, so the salary didn't get spent. So this is it's an anomaly in the year. The state did include, and under the new budget, has still included the $50,000, but the $80,000 that I'm accumulating through, if you allow me to use the $40,000 left in salary, the 24 that was programmed up in the cruisers, and then taking $20,000 from Mr. Sprawn, will basically get all the full-time personnel in the new radio. Does not allow for any spares or anything of that nature, which we always carry spares. That $50,000, which would be split with the fire department, would get us our 5 spares, if that, in fact, ever comes to fruition from the state. Last year, they took it away.
Last year was vetoed and overridden, who knows this year.
I thought this would be an appropriate way to get that done in a fairly timely manner.
Before we ask the questions, take any action, can we open up this public hearing for Tavern in the Square?
Okay. Legal notice, Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Monday, July 10th, 2017 at 8:15 in room 103 of the town offices located at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass. To act on the application of Tavern in the Square, Littleton, LLC, Renato Valenta, manager, doing business as Tavern in the Square, for an entertainment license pursuant to Mass General Law 140, Section 181, to allow live, recorded music performances at the Tavern in the Square, 810 Constitution Avenue, Littleton, Mass, as follows. Live music with amplification, Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Comments thereon may be submitted in writing to the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator's Office at 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Mass, by noon on Thursday, July 6th, or in person thereafter. Board of Selectmen, Charles DeCoste, Chairman.
All right, so that is open. If you want to come forward, you guys okay? Just handle this?
Get her done.
Get her done?
Get her done.
Get her done.
Wow.
What can I do for you?
Just give us, hum a few bars.
Hum a few bars, I'm going to sing a little bit.
Entertainment
Feel like Michael Corleone. Senator.
I mean,
yeah.
you could have saved yourself the trouble if you brought some tater tots. But since there's no tater tots, I guess we're singing.
Now we get an everything question here.
La 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 la. Ethics violation.
Yeah, so
I'm new here. It's,
yeah, simple acoustic guitar players on the patio during the summer mainly. Not bands. Not more than 2 people playing side by side an acoustic guitar.
And once you approve this, it'll be in our annual queue of licenses. So when we do our renewals during the month of December, that this one will automatically come
Sure.
up along with your liquor license and your
The whole inside.
common vic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Any questions?
No, but do we need to put in kind of limitation on type of entertainment? Do we have to put in
It
acoustic?
says acoustic in there, right?
Yeah.
It says recorded
Live and
music.
recorded.
performances.
Live recording, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so,
Acoustic somewhere, didn't
It says in the notes, please fully describe acoustic musician.
so a guy with acoustic guitar singing, the only reason that I said amplified, I wanted to be fully disclosed. I mean, sometimes even an acoustic guitar player has to have a little thing to make sure that people on the other side of the patio can hear, but it's not a huge PA with big speakers and anything like that. Plus, that would, you know, our guest base wouldn't be comfortable for our guest base to have anything more than that.
you? Want to just add the word acoustic in there to make you feel more comfortable?
I would just say, I'd rather just let common sense and experience rule. Anytime if there's an issue, you know, we get a complaint, well, then we can revisit the license.
Yeah.
And, you know, you're gonna know what's bothering your customers or the neighbors quicker than we do, so.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the closest residence is in Westford, so. Just kidding, Westford.
That's okay, Aviva's gonna do that over there anyway.
If there's no discussion or questions, entertain a motion. You got a
Which
motion?
is recorded music performances.
I don't know where.
Between sets, most likely.
Huh?
Most
They're gonna play-
acoustic musicians between sets will put on recorded music just to.
Yeah.
We'll just put our
PA.
Yeah, because you have music there.
piped in
anyways.
music that we have in our restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which you already do. Yep, okay.
Yeah.
I would just say before we close the hearing, see if the public
Again,
has.
sorry,
any.
Eric, I'm sorry.
Music lovers.
Sounds like fun.
Open mic night?
Did the chief have any comment on this?
No, he's here because of me.
Exactly. Chief and I go way back.
All right, well, good. Then I'll make a motion to close the hearing. How's that?
Second.
So moved. Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, it's unanimous. Okay, the hearing's closed. Do we need any further discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 181, to approve the application of the Tavern in the Square Management LLC doing business as Tavern in the Square Littleton for an annual entertainment license expiring December 31st, 2017, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 181, to allow live and recorded music performances at the Tavern in the Square, 810 Constitution Ave, Littleton, Mass. As follows: live music with amplification, Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, folks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
You too, thanks.
Good to see you.
See you again. All right, back to the year-end transfers, back to 5C.
He hangs around, he can get his license, right? He hangs around, he can get his license. No?
Make sure we have a copy of it.
You guys will mail that, right?
Well,
Or,
hand delivered,
Right,
hand
hand
delivered.
or I can come pick it up.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and on 5C, is there any further discussion? We had the chief's going to be moving some money around from wages that were not spent to cover the portable radios.
Just one other thing on the radios. The radios were actually purchased when we built the building. Motorola, of course, which is not unusual, about every 10 years, you know, they come out with a new model or something else and they stop supporting the old one. We've had 3 that have failed now, that are unrepairable. So, you know, they've, you know, the portable is the radio that's worn on the belt. So even though they're designed for the heavy weather, they get bumped around, they get banged around, they get, you know, so they are, but it's also the key, you know, that's the, you know, that's the thing that reports from the scene to dispatch, to fire, to whoever else is responding, what's going on. So it's one of the most important parts of the, you know, the communication system.
Okay. That makes sense as far as the, so fire's doing the same thing?
Fire's been
That's what it's
upgrading,
called, I mean.
but it's
You
a
don't
different.
answer fire questions. Different issue.
The fire was
Oh, the actual
to cover
calls.
their actual call volume, and the
Okay.
chief had kind of said, I think I might be a little short, so this
Okay.
is the reality of that.
Town meeting, we all know the issues there. retirement benefits, taking care of that, and PMBC has done such a good job of managing projects that they've got some surplus maintenance funds, so I don't see any issues unless anybody else has questions.
Gotcha.
Is there a motion? Pardon me?
It's a long one, let him read it.
I was gonna get to you.
All right, I'll take it, Joe. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 33B, to approve year-end transfers between various line items for the fiscal year 2017 budget as follows. One, $40,000 from police wages to police expenses for Motorola portable radio replacements. Two, $2,132.99 from fire expenses to fire wages for wages incurred from actual calls. Three, $2,120 from employee retiree expenses to town meeting expenses for additional chairs and AV expenses due to high attendance. And four, $25,000 from May 5th, 2014 permanent municipal building committee expenses. Surplus from completed projects to selectmen/town administrator expenses transferred for local matching funds for municipal ADA improvement grant program grant application.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you all.
Thank you.
5D, police accreditation update. Chief?
You all got my note on police accreditation, update that we did quite well. While this policy was written, for some reason, it had never got sent to the board to get approval, so we spotted that when we were doing it, so obviously we then forwarded it over to the board as part of our minimal repair work, but it obviously needed the board's approval. So basically, obviously, it's on identity theft and fraud. It kind of gives the broad overlay of how we do it as a department, who we join forces with, because identity theft is, it's terribly technical, and a lot of times it's all, computer initiated, even though the new thing that is rising again is people stealing your junk mail out of your mailbox, which has your pre-approved credit cards in it and things like that, signing up for them, getting them, and then running up a bill before you finally end up with a bill in your, mailbox. So, but it still is prevalent. We're having problems on a weekly basis with the banks, even with people stuffing the ATMs with either bad checks or no checks and taking the money right out, and then we're running into it weekly with people calling us. The scams are, I'm sure you all get calls, but who's really getting attacked is the people that are over 65 to 70 years old. My 90-year-old father probably averages 6 calls a day because they have databases that have the ages of these people, and they attack them with these, you've won. He got one the other day from Scotland that says, a long lost relative from Scotland, and I'm like, how the heck do you know you're from Scotland? And then, but it's obviously a priority for us, so anyways, I'm just looking for your approval. And
Process some pictures on Facebook of you in a kilt.
Yeah. I am Scottish, obviously.
Nice. Thank you for the update.
No, I don't have a kilt.
We might start a bagpipe unit. Make it mandatory.
Probably a good time for
Before
motion,
next
right?
June.
Yeah, I know.
I'll entertain a motion.
Do we have any,
Any discussion? Okay, go ahead, Paul.
move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 97A, to approve the following regulations for Littleton Police Department as submitted by Chief of Police Matthew King on June 20th, 2017, 9.05, identity theft and fraud.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. What is Scottish? I was going to like top of the morning to you. What do you think? Some haggis? All right, 5F, Church Meadows property. Do you think it's appropriate to hang on to this right now?
I think that what you might want to do is refer it to, it's due option
Yeah.
2.
Yes.
Refer it to the agricultural working group and decide which of the two of you we're going to represent the board on that group.
Can I suggest, since Chase and I have the open space portfolio such as it is, and it's not all that, and especially since Chase is a former Conservation Commission member, can I recommend that maybe the two of us be our...
I can certainly erase my name.
Oh, you're in it? No, you can take my place, how's that?
No, I love Glavy and Gervig.
And I only jump at this because Brad Mitchell approached me on this about a month ago and I forgot to
Stop
bring it up.
talking, I said yes.
All right. I just feel guilty because I told Brad I'd do something about this and I never did, so that's why I'm
I'm
on.
more than happy to,
I have one question, though. During the emails we had on this, it was mentioned something about a path that we didn't even ask about. No one's relayed back to me what path they were talking about. When we were trying to find out whether...
Yeah, there was something that Brad had offered.
Yeah, this had come up, so I think it was the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee was looking at a path connecting Goldsmith across.
Church Meadows.
And, right, and so that pulls in the ag land there, pulls in Church Meadows, it pulls in Cooper Farm, and it pulls in on the rail farm. And so this is something that I think we collectively want to explore and figure out the options, and it's just something that has...
We gotta reconvene the agricultural working group because I understand they haven't met since like last December or something.
Right, and there's, you know, just to get that path to happen, there's
And then
half
do
a
a
dozen
site
town
visit and all
boards,
that kind of stuff.
plus the developers that all need to figure out how to make this work.
So it may or may not be worth, I think it would be worth your while to maybe reach out to Jimmy Carr and Melissa.
Yes.
Because they were the two representatives prior to the city.
Yeah, that's a good idea, and then meet with the group and then go do a site visit and.
Yeah, and the work of the agricultural working group would be not only the Church Meadows leases, but even more significantly the Nagog Hill one, because our goal is.
That's actually what I'm really interested in, since that was my maybe initial.
Yeah, Trojan horse into that.
So you guys are in that as well, so I'll disengage with Charlie.
Well, I mean,
Snuck into that one.
have you, I didn't realize you were,
Always use an ambassador,
yeah.
no matter who's doing the work, so.
Yeah.
Charlie's a cool guy to talk to.
Yeah, so because I had been out there with Jim.
Okay, well, then we'll probably have to follow up with you and get debriefed.
Okay. All right, good, so let's look at the motion with option two, but just as this is one of those things you hear from folks, you know, we purchased this land for $415,000, we're leasing it for $1 a year. How is the land better now than it was before?
And actually, one of the issues, one of the issues that Bonnie had reminded us of is that for the period of time that we borrowed money, which is now passed because we did a State House note or something, so it's all set. But we actually had a bond requirement not to alter any of the business terms. So if there were leases that were in effect, which there were for this property when we acquired it, because these are not leases that we awarded. These were in effect when we acquired the property. So that there were some restrictions on how we could change that. Those restrictions are gone. And if you need to, have a rent structure that is more than nominal, that we're allowed to do that. Our bond counsel says.
We need to do that. It's only good fiscal.
Is that a condition that's typical? Was that
Yeah, so
specific to this property?
We had that issue. Well, we had that issue come up with the fire station
Alumni
and
bands.
alumni field. That there are bond counsel was questioning what lease terms did we have in place on either of those properties, in which case we could say none for those two. But there are restrictions on the income that you can generate from property that you're requiring with bonded funds. And now it's been paid, now the Church Meadows has been paid off, so we don't have those income
And
restrictions.
the Morrison's been paid off too, right?
Yeah,
They
long
got
ago.
long ago.
Yeah,
Looks to you. She says long ago, and he looks to you. Just saying.
well, maybe that's the reason we never collected any rent on that part.
I got this one. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote relative to the lease agreements for the town-owned Church Meadows property at 194 Great Road with tenants Nikki and Maxwell Macaruza and the garden at Church Meadows as follows. Option 2, to refer said matter to the agricultural working group for its recommendation, and further to appoint Selectmen Hervig and Glavy as members of said working group.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous, thank you. I like how you do that alphabetically. 5G, conservation restriction for the village at Reed Meadow.
This has been approved by the Conservation Commission. I have in the packet, and I'll put on the board here, where it's the parcel C, 3.8 acres, which is this area here, which is the outside of the subdivision. It's all of that land. Which is the subject of a conservation restriction. The Conservation Commission had approved it some time ago. They voted to sign the finalized document, or they signed the finalized document tonight. We have their signatures on it. And the next step is for the Board of Selectmen's approval of that.
That's only 3.8 acres, it just looks like that, doesn't it?
It does look like
One thing to point out here is that you can, it's not easy to see, but adjacent to lot H2, there's a public parking spot there to access,
Right off of,
access the trail up into the conservation area.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, we dealt with that last year, right, at some point?
Yeah, it wasn't, that was Oak Hill.
Oh, all right, you're right, I'm confused.
It almost looks like it's the driveway to the house.
There's a little bit of ambiguity there, and Conscom went through some discussion about signage and whatnot to make sure that it was clear that that's public parking for access to the conservation. Yeah. And part of the purpose was to alleviate some of the parking issues associated with the main entrance.
And we had been contacted by some of the neighbors who were expressing concern about it, so we shared this document with them, and they were satisfied that this is fine.
And then immediately abuts Oak Hill. Yep.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, because this path, the path starts right here and goes right.
Any further discussion about this? Is there a motion?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 184, Section 32, to approve a conservation restriction for approximately 3.8 acres of land on Reed Lane shown as parcel C and designated as open space on a plan of land entitled Village at Reed Meadow, Littleton, Massachusetts, prepared for owner of record Apple Valley Homes Incorporated, dated March 4th, 2013, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet by Acton Survey and Engineering Incorporated, recorded with the Middlesex South District Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 2013, Plan 225.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, it's all the fives, right?
We're into the 8s now.
Yep, up to
Up to 8A, Green Communities Program, little bragging rights here, Chief.
That's right, yeah.
We gotta put these on the front of the agenda.
Yeah,
We got a $250,000
grant.
grant, we gotta lead with this
This
stuff, right?
was, and we can enter into the record of the meeting that this grant application was written by Clancy Main. Who
Correct.
worked for us, that we
Bless him.
recognized Clancy's work at the
Clancy,
time.
thank you.
That you voted to submit the grant in March, and we're very appreciative and shared our thanks to him for his effort.
To that end, do we have something that looks somewhat formal that at our next meeting we could sign, basically a thank you note or
Sure,
some sort
be
of
happy to do
commendation
that.
or something
Yep.
that we could send off to
Yeah.
him?
Sure, happy to do that.
Thank you.
And we've already sent the paperwork in to get started, because we want to get started, but I did want to have a motion for the record.
May I ask a quick question about this? Do we need to expend these funds this year in order to apply for the grant next year? Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, that's correct, right.
It was
And that's the way the Green Communities Grant Program works, that in order to be eligible for the next year's funding round, you have to expend all your funds in the current year. And we're shooting for a target of December 31st for expending them. This year, though, the actual deadline ended up being in February, but I don't want to build in a cushion, so we want to get the.
So we're
department
planning on
started.
spending these by
Yes, we're
a similar
planning on,
timeline?
we're planning on being able to apply next year for another 250.
Okay. And what's the scope of the spec pond treatment plant upgrades?
So we did have a presentation on that, where Scott and Nick Waller, I believe, came in and talked about the pumps, the existing pumps that are in there right now, the windings.
Maybe I should, I'll go back to the.
Probably a power
check
plant
out
that you
something.
There may be a PowerPoint.
Yeah.
It's gotta be minutes, but yes, it's just much more energy efficient.
There's a PowerPoint,
technology.
Chase, that
Yeah,
Keith can
and
get you.
there's a detailed grant application that I can get from the packet back in
That'd be
March.
great.
Yeah.
Again, this is chalk this up to coming up to speed.
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly. Yep.
And unlike the first grant application, the first grant award that we got, when we were certified as a green community, we got a formula grant for $140,000, on which we could use for anything.
Yeah.
You get the money. This competitive grant round, we can use it only for those projects that we
We
apply
identified.
for. So, and I made that clear with the school and water departments, that the projects we say we're gonna do, we must do.
Right.
So we're gonna do them. And this does complete the town LED streetlights conversion will be complete with this second year of funding for that program.
Well, congratulations to all who deserve it, and I'm gonna make the motion then. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize execution of a grant agreement with the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources for the Town of Littleton's Green Communities Grant Award for energy reduction projects totaling $250,000, including $60,000 for town LED streetlights, $129,000 for Littleton Water Department spectral pond treatment plant upgrades, and $61,000 for school LED lighting projects.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much for all that worked on that. Nick Lawler, David Ketchen, Steve Mark, Clancy, of course, Keith, and your staff.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I know that it was awful to have to go in and hold that big giant check up next to Karen Polito, but we appreciate it. You're a giver, you're
People
a
are starting to
sacrifice.
talk, Keith. You and the Lieutenant Governor, I don't know.
A lot of tweets out there. She retweeted Keith's becoming a grandfather.
I saw that, I saw that. yeah.
That was very kind, very kind.
All right, item 8B is procurement facility project updates. Nagog Hill Road reconstruction, complete street sidewalk, the high school athletic field repairs, town building space needs, alumni field. Is this something we want to hold off until Anthony's back to give us an update on? Or?
We can. We had just wanted to make sure that we're regularly reporting back
Right.
to you and the public on the projects that are of interest and that are ongoing. So we had set the deadline to get these
Great to
documents
get this
in.
in writing. We don't need to belabor it.
So if you want to receive those reports, then we will, by the time we have our next meeting, we'll have further updates.
Okay, I think that's, I mean, I think we've had some level of updates throughout the meeting.
Yeah.
I think one thing to note, the memo says, you know, the NAGAG work is planned to be completed prior to June 2018, and it looks like mid-May is what they're shooting for, so they're giving themselves about
good.
6 weeks worth of
Fluff
buffer.
time?
Yeah.
Good catch.
The statement's accurate, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure it's,
right.
Yeah, right there. Thank you.
they're not planning on taking it down to the wire yet.
All right, so next up, we have item 9A, which is minutes approval.
I've got a few points in here. Who's keeping these now?
Diane.
Yeah, okay, well, Diane, on page 7, top paragraph, it says, Ms. Glavy indicated that the clerk's office, and I believe that should say Ms. Crory indicated that the clerk's office isn't even fully accessible to those coming in a wheelchair. If you see the third line up from the bottom of the first paragraph, page 7. Page 9, second paragraph from the bottom.
I think you made that comment. Didn't you? Did you
No,
make
because
the
it would
comment?
be, Diane would have made it fit logically.
No, that was Diane.
Yeah. she was saying that their office is not wheelchair accessible because of the counter.
Yeah.
So I read that, okay.
Yeah, Ms. Crory.
You
it should
had
be.
made a comment,
Yeah.
but that's fine. Okay.
Right, and then similarly, page 9, second paragraph from the bottom, last sentence, it says, Mr. Glavy said the record shows the PMBC saves the town meeting. I think that should be town money and is serving the town well. See where I got that? And then finally, page 13, at the top, town website upgrade, it says Mr. Glavy is satisfied with the website. I think that's kind of misleading. It should be satisfied with the website upgrade proposal. Obviously, if you're satisfied with the website as it is, we wouldn't be doing this.
I'm pretty sure you're just doing this right now so that you can get on the next minutes.
I read the minutes, I'm making that.
I did too, but I didn't.
During the discussion of the minutes, we have to note the
well-
changes that Mr. Glavy made to the
Correct.
That's right,
He's-
yes.
He's ensuring.
If you want the
His
records to
name.
show Mr. Coast here or Mr. Coast there, you go right ahead and allow
Been
it.
called worse. With those changes, are there any other discussion around the minutes?
No, I wasn't here for over half the meeting, so I won't be voting on it.
I believe you can still vote on it, but.
I'll move the minutes as amended.
Motion
Second.
made and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
With one abstention.
Great job, Mr. Chairman, we're ahead of schedule.
8:45, look at that,
Look at
boom.
that.
Wow.
I'm gonna get home and watch Shetland on Channel 44.
What are you watching?
One of those PBS, murder mystery
Crime
things.
dramas.
When is our
on
next meeting?
Channel 2.
2 weeks from tonight.
2 weeks, the 24th.
Okay, so folks, our next meeting is the 24th of July, right here, same bad channel.
Yeah,
So-
although the 19th,
Enjoy the next couple of
we'll all be
weeks.
gathering for the DEP thing, anybody who's coming for that.
Right.
Before you go is the conservation restriction. on,
Okay. You looking for a motion to adjourn?
I am.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thanks very much, folks. Have a great couple of weeks.
You gonna get it?
Yeah, you can get it.
Okay.